Come on, YouTube. Facebook. There we go. Okay. Okay. Well, I hope we're live. I'm not seeing anybody else here, so hopefully we're here. Uh, so let me see. Uh, okay. So while I wait for a couple other people to get on, and hopefully they will, I am gonna just kind of set things up. So today we're still in the book of um, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Um, and we're on chapter 19 called The Goldilocks Rule, How to Stay Motivated in Life and Work. This week I'm your host, and I'd like to say sorry that we haven't been on for the last few weeks. Our lives have been kind of crazy and busy, and so with that, it's hard sometimes to get all of us together and get our lives kind of on the same uh, page. Particularly on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 7 a.m. Pacific Time. And as I was getting up this morning, because during the summer normally it's a light already out and stuff, and I woke up to it being dark. It's 6 o'clock a.m. here, and so as I get up and get together and get ready to go, and so with that, stay in bed, but I knew I was going to be hosting this, so I had to get up and get myself going and remember how to get in and on the website and everything because it's been a little while since I've been on here. So with that, hopefully I have Catherine. Samantha. It says she's she's at work today, but she's at least on and listening. And hopefully Catherine will get on and join us. She's in the middle of something right at this moment, but she's sent a message saying that she's going to jump on. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Well, once again, I'm in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I'm broadcasting this on YouTube. So with this, let's jump into chapter 19. So the Goldilocks Rule, How to Stay Motivated in Life and Work. And this is a book about different habits, how to develop habits, just as a review and like go back over on how to develop better and more productive habits to help you bring about the best you that you want. So, um, the Goldilocks rule. In 1955, Disneyland had just opened in Anaheim, California, when a 10-year-old boy walked in and asked for a job. Now, interesting, 1955, they had lax rules about, and it talks about that years old could get a job. Um, and by the time I was old enough to get a job, 15 and a half, uh, so in the like late 70s, they had changed a lot of the child labor. Now it's from like 7 to 9 or 7 to 10. It was the latest, but you couldn't work any later than like 9 or 10. So I was one of the first ones that got stuck with that rule, and I remember that. But I did start at 15 and a half. But imagine starting a whole 4.5 years younger, and a lot of kids at that age aren't. That just kind of amazes me. And but what it says, and asked for a job. Labor laws were loose back then, and the boy managed to land a position selling guidebooks for 50 cents a piece. I don't think anything really costs 50 cents a piece anymore. Probably back then that was expensive. And then within a year, he had transitioned to Disney's Magic Shop, where he learned tricks from the older employees. He experimented with jokes, set out simple routines on visitors. Soon he discovered that what he loved was not performing magic, but performing in general. He set his sights on becoming a comedian. And to talk about this story and about how in his teenage years he started performing in little clubs and around Los Angeles. Clubs were small, act was short, maybe 1, 2, maybe 5 minutes, and most of the time the crowd was busy. They weren't even really paying attention to him. They were talking, they were, doing their thing. But so that to me, that would be kind of like a downer. It's like nobody's even paying attention to me. Why am I spending time, wasting my time up here? But um, one night it says he literally delivered his stand-up routine to an empty club. That would really, it's enough for me to get up and speak in front of people and stuff like that. I've gotten better over the years because of practice and time and energy and working on myself, and that, um, if you're engaging and give good enough information, or if you're funny enough, or good enough as an actor, pay attention. So to me, to have an empty club, that would kind of tell me, like, am I really doing the right thing? But uh, you know, but as he did this, he was realizing the value of getting in and doing and practicing and going on, and he kept practicing. And his first routines would last only 1 minute or 2 minutes. By high school, oh, excuse me, I'm still waking up. His material had expanded to include a 5 minute act, and a few years later, 10 minute show. And then at 19, he was performing weekly for 20 minutes at a time. Now, in the course of doing this 20 minutes at a time, he ended up having to read 3 poems during the show just to make the routine long enough, but he still continued, progressing his skills. So to me, to be doing a comedian, but then having to read 3 poems, that's kind of, in and of itself, unless he could make the poems kind of funny or fit into how he was. So even didn't mind that a filler in, but a lot of times you will see where comedians use fill in time for space for setting up the next big punchline joke or something like that. So then he spent another decade experimenting, adjusting, and practicing. He took a job as a television writer. Now, about this person, I did not know that he was a television writer, but helps me understand how we could get into the practice of getting better at writing his jokes and understanding how to write and do things for an audience. So, and gradually he was able to land his own appearances on talk shows. By the mid 1970s, he had worked his way into being a regular guest on The Tonight Show and Saturday Night Live. And I remember him being on those shows when, maybe not The Tonight Show, but Saturday Night Live, I would definitely remember, especially one of his times when he was on, and one of the little bits he did. Finally, after nearly 15 years of work, the young man rose to fame. He toured 60 cities in 3 days, then 72 cities in 80 days, then 85 cities in 90 days. He had 18,695 people attend one show in Ohio. Back then, in that day, that was a lot of people. Nowadays, that would still be a good draw. We get that many people for the Vegas Gold Knights here in Las Vegas at the T-Mobile Arena, and that sells out continually every time they play. So that's a decent crowd. Um, and then he had another 45 tickets were sold for his 3-day show in New York. He catapulted to the top of his genre and became one of the most successful comedians of his time. Now, who would you think this comedian is? I never knew this about this comedian, but I like him and I think he's very funny for the most part. His name is Steve Martin. So, in this, the story is fascinating perspective on what it takes to stick with habits for the long term. And stick with me, I'm going to the point that the author is trying to make in this part. Now, comedy is not for the timid. That's true. I know there are times people think they're funny and really funny, and you just look at them and go, don't quit your day job type thing. So with that, that's just, goes to say it takes this real work and talent to be able to understand the nuances of how to get somebody to laugh and give you what you want, the response that you want, which is the applause and the accolades of being funny. And also learning timing and, how to, pull from people too. And it is hard to imagine a situation that would strike fear into the hearts of more people than performing alone on stage and failing to get a single laugh. And yet, excuse me again. And yet, Steve Martin faced this fear every week for 18 years. And then he says in his words, 10 years spent learning, 4 years spent refining, and 4 years as a wild success. Now, that goes in to show that literally there's no such sense as an overnight success. I mean, here was 18, 19 years to get to that point where he ultimately got what he was looking for way back when he first started. Why is it that some people like Martin stick with their habits, whether practicing jokes or drawing cartoons or playing guitar, while most of us struggle to stay motivated? And I think that's what the key question is of this chapter is, why do we all get amped up, as we call it? We have to get amped up to go and do this, or amped up to do this project, or amped up to work on this thing that we really want to do in our hearts, but we have to gear ourselves up. And I think the author makes a great point about this. How do we design habits to pull us in rather than ones that fade away? And it says scientists have been asking this question for many years. While there is still much to learn, because excuse me, I'm sorry. While there's still much to learn, that because the mind is very complicated and everybody's brain is a little different and works a little differently, a lot of the basics are there, but how we perceive and take in and react to stuff, everybody's different, and so you have to take that into effect. While there's still much to learn, one of the most consistent findings is that the way to maintain motivation and achieve peak levels of desire is to work on tasks of just manageable difficulty. And when I was reading that last night, as I was reading this chapter, I was thinking just manageable difficulty, which it didn't make sense, but it kind of made sense because, like, when I wanted to go play tennis when I was younger, I had the desire and the willingness and the wanting to get out and go practice with somebody and hit the ball back and forth, or go find a backboard and just, practice my forehand, practice my backhand, baseline, and practice on my serves, hitting, serve after serve after serve after serve till my arms were tired, or going and just hitting against the wall and practicing on that forehand to where I could get, and then going back and practicing on the court where I practiced my swings that I'd already built up by practicing on the backboard, but now I needed to learn and get better at placement where I wanted to play. You watch the professionals, you can see them get in, and as they're hitting, they know where they're going to place that ball. Usually, as the ball's coming back to out of the other person, because they already know what that person's probably going to do, or have a sense of where they're going to go. And when I was learning thought, stay in the middle ground of the baseline. If you're a baseline player, if you're more of a, front back, short and lobbing or drop shot person, you learn other little strategies. I was more of a baseline player, so I was always taught to stay in that, middle section, so that way I could easily go right to left, get to shots, run up to the net if I needed to run up, come back, get back behind a high lob or something to where I could smash. So with that, you know, I had to learn where I wanted to place that ball, and I was always about one or two shots ahead. I'd be like, okay, I'm going to hit it there. They'll probably, because where I'm hit it, they'll probably count. So I want to start heading over there, and you start setting up shots to get that winning shot. And if you are understanding or know enough about tennis, you can see kind of where they're setting up the shots and getting ready to make that shot that's going to be that winning shot. So with that, that's, with something I have and desire, because I love playing tennis. I still do. I don't get out enough, and I need to make that time, and that's part of why reading this book has been helpful, because it's given me ideas and ways to re-engage and reenact and get myself more motivated. But the drudgery and the thought of, after I've been out working all day, or this or that, or to spend time on my weekends, to take out of my weekends from other things I need to do. But, it's also goes back to the old saying, what is you and what is your drive and focus? You'll make time and energy for it, and you'll find a way to do that. So with that, it's, the dynamics of how that works. Yeah, yeah. So with that, sorry, my roommate just needed to ask me a question, because um, he's got his daughter here with him, and so he's running to run to the gym, and so I'm going to be listening out for her. So sorry for the interruption. But now getting back into this, so just manageable difficulty. That there was enough to engage me to want to do the practicing, to go out, and so I could take that practicing and all that effort, and when I went out onto the court, I would feel confident and good enough that I could get out there and face my opponent and hopefully win, and have all the skills and abilities and the shots that I needed, and to go out and win, and the coaching from my coaches and stuff like that. The human brain loves a challenge, and this is part of what plays into this, but only if it's within an optimal zone of difficulty. If you love tennis, sorry, I picked a sport I love, and he talks about it, and try to play a serious match against a 4-year-old, you will quickly become bored. And that is so true. When I was played with, when me and my brother would get out and play when we were younger, when we'd have some good, fierce matches, because we're both competitive, we don't like to lose, especially to each other. But, when my nieces and nephews wanted to play a little bit, they would play, but then they would get frustrated because, we would get frustrated, because it's like you know, it was just frustrating sometimes. And that's a great point. Because it was too easy. You'll win every point. In contrast, if you play a professional tennis player like Roger Federer or Serena Williams, you will quickly lose motivation because the match is too difficult. Sorry, for me, that would probably be a challenge. I'd be like, oh, no, no, no. Somehow I'm going to win at least a point. I'm going to win 1 point. I may lose all games and end up losing the match. I'm going to strive for getting that 1 point. So that would be the challenge for me, to get out and really push my hardest to try and get that 1 point off them, so I could tell people, hey, I got 1 point. Um, but now playing somebody who was my equal. My brother was more my equal. We both have the same strengths and abilities in tennis, and there were times when I could win. There were times when, so it was more enjoyable, more fun because we would get into those deep rallies and those long points, and we would have to work to win the point, and I got a high off of it, a thrill. But goes in. So he says your focus narrows and distractions fade away, and that's true. You get it. Everybody's heard of this, the zone or the sweet spot, or the being there, just in it. And especially if I play him and we're in a good match, I can get there, and it's like you just and your focus narrows, distractions fade away, and you find yourself fully invested in the task at hand. This is a challenge of just manageable difficulty, and is a prime example of the Goldilocks rule. Goldilocks rule states that humans experience peak motivation when working on the tasks that are right on the edge of their current ability, not too hard, not too easy, just right. So I think that's what tennis had for me in a lot of games, because there were a lot of players I was good against, I could play against, I could win, but there were others that were more advanced, and it put that drive and desire for playing on my team, because one, I got the individual um, goals out of it, but I also helped my team because I was on the tennis team, varsity all 4 years, led it twice. So in that, it gave me that distinction too, and gave me some um, esteem and stuff, and stuff being a part of the sports team and sports, and in high schools, sports tend to be a real area where people tend to look up to people and stuff like that. Now, Martin's comedy career, was an example of the Goldilocks rule in practice. So each year he expanded, he worked, but only by a minute or two. He didn't try and expand it by 20 minutes or do it all. He would work in little increments. And I think that's what people forget about, is when they take on tasks and keep it manageable, they get started and they'll start on let's say a workout routine, and you come in and you start and you do this, and you are really pumped for the first week or so because you feel like you're doing good. But then that kind of drudgery of, oh, I don't feel up to it today. I don't want to go. I don't want to get into it. You know, it's learning to keep that balance, and to keep it, easy as possible, to stick with it even when conditions aren't. So, by sticking to, one type of workout, where you kind of can get the habits and the routine down, and because we all develop routines. I have my morning routine of when I get up and stuff, and I just kind of automatically do it because I've been doing it for so long. And now it feels normal and part of my everyday life, but it took me a while to get to that. Some others I'd like to add and change, and it's going to take a process of doing what he's talking about. Um, you know, that you can stick with it even when conditions aren't perfect. And this is an idea we covered in detail while discussing the third law of behavior change. So once a habit has been established, however, it's important to continue to advance in small ways. And we all know the value of continuing to advance, and how to, build in and get that uh, little win, I guess you could call it, or that something that gives us a little pump. And like, I remember when I would work out kind of regularly, I'd be stuck in, they call it the plateau. You work out and you build up, and because you're breaking down your muscles, you're retraining your muscles and getting that muscle memory. But then you kind of get to a plateau, in a place where it also happened with me in tennis or in some of the sports I played. I would, kind of gain and add to the skill level, and then I kind of plateau a little bit. I get frustrated, and it would take my coaches or me or a friend or somebody to remind me, especially when I was working out. It would take other people I knew, and friends that I knew that maybe they're helping me, or may have gone through the same thing, where they'd say, just keep it, everybody plateaus a little bit until they can get to that next level and go up and, start to gain a little traction again. And So, that's, um, you know, I lost my page flipped. The little improvements, new challenges keep you engaged, and if you hit the Goldilocks zone, and I was talking about earlier, that zone state, the flow state, where things just kind of are going and you're feeling it and you're hitting things, that's the part that is, what you're trying to strive and get to. The A flow state is experienced, yeah, as I said, and fully immersed in an activity. And scientists have tried to kind of quantify it and give it like a range or whatever, but it's kind of hard because everybody's a little different. So the being in the zone is going to be a little different, and you're going to get there in a little bit different way, everybody. But once you're there, and if you've ever experienced it, you know what that zone state feels like, and we all tend to want to get back to that zone because it's such a, you know, ethereal feeling that you're just like, wow, I'm unbeatable, I'm unstoppable, I'm in it. I can't be denied, so to speak. And we see it in sports where you'll see them, basketball games, football games, you know, runners, or things like that, or in a tennis match where it seems like, you know, they're both starting off to get in their feel, and all of a sudden, you know, one tennis player will kind of just be hitting all their shots exactly where they're wanting to, putting their opponent on the defense where they're always kind of scrambling and they're not being able to get into their mindset game and get their head going and to set up the shots that they want. They're just reacting because they're running side by side, they're back, they're off balance, whatever. And so with that, that's kind of the same thing with doing habits. You want to work towards getting to that point where you are in that zone. Like sometimes when I'm doing my normal stuff around the house, there are some times where I just kind of get in that zone where I might put my headset on and listen to certain songs come on, and they just kind of get me grooving and get me in. And it's like, okay, well, let me get this done. And next thing I know, I've done all my stuff, and I haven't even really thought about it. And sometimes, other times, the music's not right, or I don't listen to it. I've got other things or a lot of things on my mind, and it's like, okay, I want to get this done, but yeah, whatever, just let me get through it. And it's kind of not the same, and it's harder for me to get those chores done or get the things done I want to. And a lot of times, coming home from working, being exhausted, and a lot of times because I Uber part time after work, I'll even do that for 2 or 3 hours. And I come home and I'm really exhausted. And I really don't want to think about anything. I don't want to do anything. Veg and, like unload my brain from the day. Because at work, I'm engaging and doing stuff with my routines, my things I do there. And things come in and jump in and out and get me, in my flow or out of my flow. Some days it flows, some days it doesn't. So sometimes when I come home, I'm just like, I don't want to mess with anything. And I think that's what happens to a lot of us. We get into building our habits, building our things, wanting to take on new challenges or make changes. Day to life takes us out. And that's the point he brings out in this book is, you know, uh, the improvement takes delicate balance, and you need to regularly search to your edge while continuing to make enough progress to stay motivated. But he talks about how to stay focused when you get bored working and goes. And he talks about after his baseball career ended, he was looking for a new sport, so he joined a weight. One day, an elite coach visited the gym. He had worked with thousands of athletes during his long career, including a few Olympians. So he introduced himself, and they began talking, and about the process of improvement. And he asked the weightlifting coach, "What's the difference between the best athletes and everyone else?" And he asked that, and he says, "What do the really successful people do that most don't. This guy, he mentioned the factor that you might expect: genetics, luck, talent. But the thing that took the author kind of by surprise and caught him off guard, and when I read the chapter, it kind of made me sit back and think about it, is he mentioned, he said something that he was, at some point it comes down to who can handle the boredom of training every day, doing the same list over and over. And it surprised the author. And as I was reading that, it surprised me, but it didn't surprise me because I haven't been in a number of different sports. I did tennis, I did soccer, I was a wrestler, um, and swim team. So I played sports, and then as I got out of high school, I got into um, uh, some volleyball leagues and stuff and got into that. So I've always been involved in something like that in sports. As I've gotten older, that's tapered off. But I understand what he's saying because, if you're going to be good at it and you really want it and you're really focused and you want to be at the top of your game, you know, you have to put in the time and energy and the practice to get there. But there's the Monday, you know, and I'm say it, going to hitting the tennis ball at the backboard. There were times where when I was younger, I went because it would get me to where and I could manage it. But as I've gotten older, there are times when I want to go to the park, find a place where it's got a backboard so I can sit there. And sometimes I have, and sometimes I haven't. But I've not followed through and kept up. And part of that is it's not the end result that getting in and doing the little things to get me back to where maybe I might be able to join one of the, you know, city league tennis things around and play and make it a way of meeting other people and making some new friends, but yet finding something that help keep me a little healthier as I'm getting older. I'm not getting any younger, so those are thoughts and things that, but that's what I think a lot of people have problems with is as they're going through and as they're handling and going through trying to take on new habits and stuff, that little boredom part of it and that routineness and that monotonous of it. And sometimes it kind of makes you think, well, I do like this at work. Why would I be at work all day, do the same task and the monotonous there? At least I get a reward. I get my paycheck or, or I am taking care of my family and doing what I need to do. So that's the drive. That's the part of the drive that keeps you going to that job and doing those things. But when it's on your own time and it's your own, and you're thinking, well, I'd rather just be home doing this or relaxing or doing that. And that's where I've been. I've been there. I do it. I do it quite often because um, your mind goes, I admit, your mind goes through changes as you get older and your body's like, telling sometimes you have to override your body or override your brain, because your brain can, play those tricks with you. And it comes down to the work ethic, what you do. And that's where I was talking about earlier about getting amped up to work on their goals, whether it's business or sports or art. You hear people say things like it all comes down to passion or you have to really want it. And as a result, many of us get depressed when we lose focus or motivation because we think that the successful people have some bottomless reserve of passion. But this coach was saying that really successful people feel the same lack of motivation as everyone else. The difference is that they still find a way to show up despite the feelings of boredom. And I think that's the other part of it is, and he talks in the book, showing up, being there, showing up in order to be able to get you into the moment. One of the things I've learned now, and I try to follow that thought process, is a lot of times I know that if I come home and there are things I want to do and get done, if I don't turn on the TV and if I don't sit down, because I've been at work, I've been, working and all I want to do is just kind of veg. But if I don't sit down and I get started on one of my first tasks, somehow it gives me the energy and the ability to keep going, because then I'm like, okay, well, I got that done. And I get that little win part, that little thing that, okay, I got that done. Well, now I got that, so let me move on to this. Let me move. And then within maybe an hour or so, or even 2 hours, if it's, I've got a big list that day, I can get those things done. And then I can sit there and say, wow, I got all this done. And by not giving myself that moment's time to really sit down, relax, and get in that mode, like, oh, well, I'm just sitting here, oh, I'm feeling just, oh, let me turn on the boob tube and watch TV and not do what I want to do. And then it's like I'm kicking myself in the butt later on as I'm, you know, winding down to go to bed because I got to get up and go to work the next day. And it's like, well, I had the intentions of coming home, getting this done, but instead I did that. But if I get in and do it, even if I do it for a couple hours, that still gives me 2 or 3 hours of wind down time to relax, do what I want. I get dinner in between there somewhere and then sit down, relax, read a book, play a game on my phone, watch TV, visit with my roommate, things like that. So I can always go and, it gives me that, uh, hey, yes, I did it, that little win. And, but he talks about, and that in order to master, get these skills and get where you want to be, it takes practice. Some people have natural born talent and are able to pick up things and do things, but they still, in order to keep some of that skill level there and those talents, they still have to work on it and build on it and add to it. So it still takes practice and still takes, time and energy to put that into uh, getting it to where you want. Sorry, I'm just kind of reviewing some more because I don't remember everything. He talks about the greatest threat to success is not failure, but boredom. And I think I agree with that. I think that's, just uh, where I think we all go through that. I think we all experience that boredom that, like, oh, I'm doing the same thing. Is there something that, can spice it up a little bit, get it, to where it excites. And I think if you can work through that, or you understand that as you're working through it to get to where you want to be and get what you want done, you know, that's part of it. And if you understand it and you can work through and get to those places, you will see results, and those results will take on a bigger and more valuable meaning, and it will help push you and catapult you to going on and get to that next level. Oh, and he talks about we get bored with the habits because they stop delighting us, and that's kind of what I was just talking about. The outcomes becomes expected, and as our habits become or us to seek novelty, and that's the other thing. Our brains like novelty, as he put it, or that oh, this is neat, this is new, this is different. Oh, let me keep working at this. But then once that novelty wears off, our brains tend to go, okay, I need something else to kind of, engage me and pick me up. And so I think those that are able to have, handle that and deal with that, because this is, I think a lot of people get caught up in the never-ending cycle, jumping from one workout to the next, one diet to the next, one business idea to the next. And then we begin seeking a new strategy, that new novelty, that new, okay, this is not it. It doesn't, get me excited and think of the feeling, like the feelings I've had when I was expecting and gearing up for a big match or something. I would work out and stuff because I knew that big match was coming up, and it would give me the novelty, and it's okay, I know this is working towards that. But then after that big match, there was a letdown, and it'd be like, oh, I don't want to get up because, this, that, or whatever. That's how our brains kind of work. We're up and down, we're up and down. And if you learn to kind of, like they say, life is a bunch of hills and valleys, you go up and go down. And if you learn to manage the peaks and the valleys, but learn to kind of keep your mindset in that straight line that develops you, that you see over time, hills and valleys, if you learn to kind of manage those, as he talks about, just manageable difficulty, I think you'll reach your goals and your habits, and you'll obtain, get the return and the results that you want from establishing those habits as you walk through it. And the key thing is, he talks about, he says, as soon as we experience this different motivation, we begin seeking a new strategy, even if the old one is still working. And I found that sometimes the old stuff is working, and it's kind of like, but it doesn't engage me or get me in, and then it's kind of like it peters out a little bit and stuff, and I kind of have to rework myself up. Oh, but he makes some good points. Says this is why many of the most habit-forming products are those that provide continuous forms of novelty. Video games provide video. There are so many different video games. I have a couple, things on my phone. One, Solitaire. It's not that novel, but it gives me some joy and pleasure as I use it as a downtime thing. But there's another one I really like. It's my bubble shooter, and I'm at level 600 something, whatever, and it has different variations, and it continues, and some of them have been really hard, and the really hard ones have really challenged me. I've really have gotten into that mindset of I'm going to beat this one, and it's taken me it took me, I think 15, 20 different tries to get through it. Once I got through it, it was like, yes, I beat it. But it took me in the habits and going through and finding out which was the most optimal way. It was kind of like a habit, I things, but it didn't work. I had to look at new and different strategies. So in that, I was, going through some habits there and getting to there. But once I got past it, it gave me that, yes, I beat it. And I think that's, uh, porn, they say, provides sexual novelty. People get off into, well, their partner is boring, and they go, oh, that's exciting. Oh, that's stimulating. Oh, and then they kind of, it kind of becomes that addictive thing to where when you're with your partner, you're just kind of, it's just the same old, and you kind of, and I think that's, what people don't realize, that's how that happens with junk food. I have certain things. I've kidded in the past about me and my Mountain Dew. I haven't been drinking much Mountain Dew, but I still drink it and stuff. Um, but that was kind of a novelty. But then it became just part of my normal routine, and it just stuck. Each of these experiences offer continual elements of surprise. In psychology, this is known as a variable reward. Slot machines is a great example, are the most common real-world example. A gambler hits a jackpot every now and then, but not at any predictable interval. The, this variance leads to the greatest spike in dopamine, enhanced memory recall, and accelerates habit formation. And that's why I'm glad I've played video games. I've played slot machines. I haven't played slot machines as much. To me, they're just, I don't know. They're just a big fan, but I've that in some of those, and I like live games better. Like I've done betting at a live poker table, and I enjoyed that. But still, the reward and the um, payoff was varied. It wasn't, I wasn't guaranteed to win every hand, and I wasn't given the cards. So in that, I understand that, and I'll be honest. I realized young when I was in college and living in a gambling town, I learned really quickly. I really liked going to that gaming table, and before it did become a addictive and bad habit, I had to realize it in myself that I like that very reward. I like that challenge. I like that playing against the other people and getting that reward of when I won a hand. It's like, yeah, that spike, that dopamine, that high that I got. I had to realize that was not good. So I never went back to any tables, and therefore, thank God, I never developed a habit like somebody I knew that ultimately did, and because he was, young, his parents were paying for college. They brought him back home, and he lived in like New York or something, or back east where they didn't have gambling, and put him in another school to help break that cycle and that. And so therefore, that's the other part of it. Some of these things can go lead into the addictive side too. So you have to learn to work and balance that out, I think. Now, he also draws out a conclusion of course, not all habits have a reward component, and you wouldn't want them to. Say, like, if Google only delivered a useful search result some of the time, you would find somebody else that would give you that definitive answer each and every time that you need that you're looking for, or a series of results that fit within that answer. Variable rewards or not, no habit will stay interesting forever. At some point, everyone faces the same challenge on the journey of self-improvement. You have to fall in love with boredom. We all have goals that we like to achieve and dreams that would like to fulfill. But it doesn't matter what you're trying to become better at. If you only do work when it's convenient or exciting, then you'll never be consistent enough to achieve remarkable results. And I think that can go without saying if you're looking. Um, that's the interesting thing about some of the big entrepreneurs and stuff that we hear about and stuff. And a lot of us in this group, we are entrepreneurial minded and we want to build our own businesses, do our own stuff. But some of the big entrepreneurs like Richard Branson, Elon Musk, Ford, Henry Ford, back when those people, they had a drive or, a kind of sense of just succeeding at all costs, no matter what they had to go through, meaning they had to manage and realize that the little boredom in their steps and getting that. And I think that's where a lot of us forget because we get into the everyday life and the things going on around us. And do we really have that drive or that desire or something that's in us that will help push that drive or the desire? Like for me, for a lot of times when I was involved in tennis and actively playing, I did that for 6 years. There was that drive and that desire to try to be the best and be that top individual state champion. I never reached that pinnacle, but my skill level maybe was not there, and I did not put in the time and effort that I had. Now, when I wrestled a 4-year undefeated state championship team, so there was a lot of it at stake, and I knew the level I had to raise up to get there. And so I wrestled at a smaller weight. I was a smaller person. I only weighed 108 pounds in high school. I wrestled at the 98 pounds, so I had to lose weight, but I wrestled at that weight and had no problems with it. And I ended up being one of the top wrestlers. Ended up going to zone, seeded fourth in zone. I did get beat, but in that, I was, you know, one of the top 98 pounders in that area, and I was a first year wrestler, and I lettered. But had I maybe started when I was ninth grade, I could have maybe have been something even better. I maybe could have been a 2 or 3 time state champion rather than just making it to zone. So sometimes that hindsight is also like, wow, had I done this when I really wanted to, there might have been a difference. And had I really followed that urge when I first thought about it, but I was already involved in other things and stuff, and that took a precedent. Our own worst enemy when we look at things and we think we don't have the ability, or we don't want to do it, or we're scared or afraid, or don't have that drive. And I didn't have it right at that point. It wasn't until my senior year. So that had a difference. And I think that's where, sometimes that can uh, get there. Now, he says, I can guarantee that if you manage to start a habit and keep sticking to it, there will be days when you feel like quitting. When you start a business, there will be days when you don't feel like showing up. When you're at the gym, there will be sets that you don't feel like finishing. And when it's time to write, there will be days that you don't feel like typing. But by stepping up, and I think that's what he's trying to get to, the ultimate goal, and that's something I said earlier, you have to show up, you have to be there, you have to do it. And by doing it, and doing it, and doing it when you don't want to do it, some of the best workouts I've ever had have been on the days when I have gone to the gym and I was like, I don't want to be here. I really don't want to. But then I got into it and it's like, oh. And somehow that day I was able to push a little further and a little farther. And I think it's because as I got into it, the dopamine and the, stuff kind of kicked in and it pushed me. And then I'm like, oh, wow, okay, this isn't so bad. And it pushed me to kick a little harder. Whereas on the days where I'm going, my mindset's and I'm geared and I'm ready, and it just becomes another workout. I think it's sometimes in going through the challenge of just going through and showing up is when we have our best, days and our best points and our best moments. And then that can be that little win, that little gear that said, oh, wow, I had a great day yesterday. Let me go back tomorrow and try for that same day. Or let me go tomorrow and try and type up that good blog post that, like I did yesterday, where I was just really engaged. I'm hitting it and doing it. And I think that's the boredom. And I think that's the everyday, parts of habits and life and things that we get sucked into. And we forget to go back and look at each day new, fresh, and with that new set of eyes, like when we were just starting out and we're, doing that. And maybe we have to look at each day as that new day. We're just starting out because we're just starting out that day for what that day has, and can move and get through it by hitting it and with that. So with that, I think I've felt and covered. I'm going to go over the chapter summary. I wish somebody else could have joined and been here, um, but I'm here. I'm glad you guys are here. I hope you guys got something out of it. I am sorry. I found the, let me see. Just sorry. Somebody sent and respond, but I'm so the chapter summary. The Goldilocks rule states that humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are right on the edge of their current abilities. The greatest threat to success is not failure, but boredom. As habits become routine, they become less interesting and less satisfying. We get bored. Anyone can work hard when they feel motivated. It's the ability to keep going when work isn't exciting that makes the difference. And professionals stick to the schedule. Amateurs let life get in the way. And I think that's a great way to finish up. Um, I think that's where we all tend to, for those of us that have problems trying to keep habits going, I think that's what we do. We tend to let life get in the way, and instead of us taking charge and getting in the way and making a way through life like that, where we're more in control and we take charge and we decide that it is worth it and we want to do it, and therefore no matter if it's boring or not, I'm going to continue this level or this place, or get myself back in better shape, or eat healthier, or be able, if you're um, like a little bit older, but you have kids that are still, active and doing things and stuff, to be able to do stuff with them, or whatever your habit or the goals you have. If you remember to understand what that it's going to get a little boring, it's going to get a little mundane, it's going to, but if you keep showing up and keep walking through it and keep doing it, there will be the moments where you have that day up, but you show up and you have that really good day, and it's going to be a little catapult to keep you going. And I think, but if you go with the mindset of knowing that it's going to start getting routine, it's going to start getting this, and understand it, and just keep showing up, I think you'll have great. All right, I wish none of the other panel members could be here and join me this morning. I would love to have had their input or their thoughts, or chimed in with what they got out of the chapter if they read it. But with that, as always, we are usually here every Saturdays, 10 a.m. Pacific time, 7 a.m. Pacific time. If you want to know more about us, join us, click, uh, click on our Facebook page at Mindset Mastery Collective, or go to our YouTube channel at Mindset Mastery Collective. There also, you can see replays of this. We'll have that there. As always, I'm glad you guys joined us. If you did, hope you got something out of this, and look forward and hope to hear from you guys. Like I said, if you go to the Facebook page or even message one of us, we'll get you plugged into the group and stuff, so that way maybe you can be a guest or a panelist on here. But as always, thanks. I'm at the top of the hour, so we'll see you next time. Bye.